Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman set to present her sixth budget and interim vote on account budget shortly. In about 10 minutes from now, she will be presenting it, the first budget in the new Parliament building.
We've got information that the Union Cabinet meeting inside the Parliament building has ended, and Nirmala Sitharaman is getting set in about 7 minutes from now to present her sixth budget. A significant achievement, this, because she's really joining the who's who in terms of those who've held the finance ministry, Rajdeep.
That's right. And, when she took over Rahul 6 years ago, or 5 years ago, there was a element of surprise. She was the surprise choice. I think the expectation was you would have someone, quote unquote, a little bit more high profile with experience in finance. Well, she's proved many of the skeptics wrong, both by her durability and her consistency. So I think for her, this marks the end of one chapter. We don't know what happens post May 2024, but the expectation will be that because of continuity, she could, and if this government wins, she could be the finance minister delivering a budget in July as well.
Subhashkar, how would the government account for geopolitical risk internationally in their budget calculations, and keep in mind that whatever they're thinking or trying to do doesn't get outdone by what's happening abroad?
See, my take on geopolitical risk is slightly more nuanced and different. There are two sides of it. One is the financial risk. You have sudden inflows if there is a lot of liquidity being put in by the Americans and elsewhere, which happened in 2021, 22, and when the reversal happens, which is currently happening. So there are certain implications because the capital flows and other. The second, which is normally people consider the war in Ukraine or Gaza or now the Red Sea. In fact, in my judgment, the second kind of risks has actually not done any serious damage to us. In fact, it has been beneficial.
No, but in the Red Sea, the Houthi attacks, increasing all shipping and
so
cargo.
far, if you look at the oil, is not affected by that. Earlier, Ukraine.
Why the food prices were affected?
No, that's what I'm coming to. So, let me explain. So, in Ukraine, the food prices had gone up because there was a problem on the wheat exports from the Russia and the Ukraine side. Yeah. But that was an opportunity for us because wheat we could have exported much more. In fact, let me.
Not with the El Nino, no?
Yeah, one by one. I'll get you to speak and then get you to respond.
So, wheat, we were having surplus at that time. We had actually exported about 7.5 million tons of wheat that time. We could have actually used that opportunity. Later on, because our domestic supply of wheat had gone down, later on when our rice supply had gone down, this was a domestic reason, and the government met that by putting sort of ban on the export, etc. So I don't think geopolitical factors have any serious adverse consequences.
Yes, Mr. Kumar.
Subhash, you must accept that the geopolitical situation has been marked with the greatest uncertainty ever.
Not really.
Because of the pandemic, because of the Ukraine war, because of now what's happening in the Red Sea, and that's affected investment intentions, and that's affected FDI flows, and that affected, for example, the food inflation that I talked about. To think that all this global uncertainty, the slowing down of demand, the global trade growth going down, the GDP growth going down, has left us completely unaffected, is sort of thinking that we are living in a kind of a cocoon which is just our own.
Rajiv,
I don't think that
2021, our FDI was the highest ever. The growth was the highest because
that was on 20.
This is 2021, the pandemic year. The highest FDI we have got is in 2021.
But then it tapered off after that.
No, that is, so when the crisis, the epidemic crisis was over, it was not because the pandemic had affected, in fact it created opportunity for a lot of investment flow into the digital economy of India, the startups of India, and since the Americans were expanding the liquidity, there was a lot of cheaper money available for investment.
That's exactly what I'm trying to say.
So 2020,
as soon as the inflation hiked up in the US and in Europe, and they raised the interest rates, all that liquidity dried up. The investments, the investment flows stopped. The the dollar started strengthening at that same time, and that's impacted us. And just one second, the growth, you know that the growth of world trade has been one of the weakest in the last 3 years ever, and has been growing slower than the GDP growth rate, world growth rate, which itself has been quite weak. Now that must affect the Indian economy, right?
So that is the distinction I am making. Financial is a different segment, and the non-financial physical disruptions, geopolitical. So what I am saying is that the geopolitical physical side has not disrupted us or affected us adversely. It is the financial changes. Okay. So in 2021 we benefited, in fact. Later on we are now having some adversity.
Okay,
so
interesting to have two different perspectives to that, because I think this is one of those risk factors, Yashwant Sinha briefly spoke about it, that I think businessmen are concerned about at one level round.
So I'll take one or two responses from that C-Voter pre-budget poll, which really laid out expectations voters have from the budget. And the question that was asked was, has the centre delivered on the economic front? Let me take you through the responses to that question. 40% of the respondents in that C-Voter survey saying that the delivery has been better than expected, 25% saying that the delivery is just as expected, 35% saying that the delivery is worse than expected. But 4 out of 10 saying the government at this time seems to have done better than expected. Let's take a look at the quality of people's lives and whether they think it's getting better or the worse. Quality of Aam Aadmi's life last year. Quality of life last year, 35% saying has improved, 30% saying is the same, 35% saying has got worse. So how was your life last year? 35% saying it's improved, 30% saying it's the same, 35% saying it's got worse. What's your expectation about life next year? 42% saying it will improve, 31% saying it will roughly be the same, and 28% saying it will deteriorate. So, Rajdeep, while you can say that there is no irrational exuberance, it's not doom and gloom either. Like the handling of the economy by the finance minister, more optimism than caution, but not too much exuberance either.
No, I draw the distinction between 2019 and 24. The same numbers in 2019 suggested that the government was on notice. There was a sense that the government at that moment was on the back foot, and the interim budget reflected that when the Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Yojana was announced. There was a desire to ensure that certain sections of society which felt vulnerable at that time were given those benefits. That's not the case now.